Welcome to Le Weekend, the bonus extended podcast episode for France News Brief. In case you missed one of our dailies, we've put together a convenient way to catch up on the stories from the past week in France, plus additional content about something related to culture, art, history, or current events at the end. If you enjoyed our daily updates, you'll find everything you need right here in a seamless recap of the week's most important headlines. Perfect for those who want to catch up in just one episode, Le Weekend is designed to keep you informed and engaged with a lighter touch at the end. Let's dive in. This is the news for Monday, September 15th. Rating agency Fitch downgraded the credit rating given to French public debt, which went from AA- to a simple A+. It is the first of the three major agencies to withdraw France's AA rating, as reported by Les Echos. Thales, Airbus and Leonardo are in talks for a joint venture in the field of source satellites. European aerospace groups Leonardo, Thales and Airbus have stepped up efforts to combine their satellite businesses in a joint venture reportedly valued at 10 billion euros, approximately $12.2 billion, and hope to conclude an initial agreement in the coming weeks, according to sources cited by Reuters. France's new Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, held out an olive branch to the left this weekend, ruling out his predecessor's plan to cut two public holidays to help slash the deficit. Asked if he would consider implementing the so-called Zuckman tax on the ultra-rich, a proposal rejected by the previous administration, he said only that he was willing to work on issues of tax justice, as reported by Le Monde. Berlin, Paris and London called for an immediate halt to Israeli military operations in Gaza City. The French, German and British foreign ministries urgently called for an immediate halt to Israeli military operations in the city. They denounced the massive displacement of civilians, civilian casualties and the destruction of infrastructure, as reported by BFM. French farmers announced nationwide protests later this month over trade deals and food sovereignty. French farmers argue that international trade deals such as Mercosur risk undermining food sovereignty and local producers, as reported by RFI. Louis Sarkozy, the son of former President Nicolas Sarkozy, will run for mayor in Menton. The scandal-hit French Riviera town has several investigations open into the local administration, as reported by Le Monde. Qatar owns 20% of property on Paris's Champs-Élysées. By reviewing land registry records, a report by Le Monde determined that 1/5 of the facades of Paris's prestigious avenue are owned by the small Gulf monarchy. French members of a jihadist family are on trial for joining IS and taking children to Syria. 3 French women, members of the Clen family who converted to fundamentalist Islam and traveled to Iraq and Syria to join the Islamic State armed group, went on trial today in Paris on charges of terrorist criminal association, as reported by RFI. A Flying Whales airship factory project in Gironde received an initial green light. This Franco-Canadian project aims to market from 2029 cargo airships to decarbonize the transport of heavy loads, as reported by Le Figaro. This is the news for Tuesday, September 16th. France's central bank has slightly revised its growth forecast for 2025 upwards. Banque de France now anticipates growth of 0.7% in gross domestic product this year, slightly higher than the 0.6% prediction in June. to be followed by 0.9% and 1.1% in 2026 and 2027, citing in particular a more uncertain national context, as reported by Libération. The French culture minister is being investigated over luxury jewelry. French prosecutors launched a probe into claims that Rachida Dati had omitted 19 pieces of jewelry worth a total of 420,000 euros, approximately $500,000 from her declaration of assets, as reported by Le Monde. Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu ended certain lifetime benefits for former prime ministers. The Prime Minister will sign a decree in the coming days, effective January 1st, 2026, to limit the material resources and police protection made available to former heads of government, as reported by Le Parisien. The Council of Europe has raised concerns about France's protection of women against sexual assault and violence. In a report released today, experts acknowledged that some progress has been made, but stressed that urgent measures are still needed, as reported by RFI. All trade unions in France are calling for a national mobilization on Thursday, September 18th, against the 2026 budget and President Macron's policies. The authorities are expecting up to 400,000 demonstrators, twice as many as on September 10th. A so-called Black Day is expected for Parisian and regional transport, as reported by France 24. The popular series The White Lotus will be setting up shop somewhere in France for its next season. Two of the stars in the HBO drama series, which follows wealthy guests on vacation to luxury resorts, said the fourth season is set to be filmed in France, as reported by HuffPost. This is the news for Wednesday, September 17th. An asylum seeker who arrived in Britain on a small boat cannot be removed to France pending a full legal challenge. The 25-year-old Eritrean man won an interim court injunction that prevented his removal under a one-in, one-out pilot scheme, as reported by Reuters. In search of respectability, Chinese e-commerce giant Shein joins forces with French ready-to-wear brand Pimki. The Chinese platform has signed its first strategic partnership as part of the Shein Accelerator program. Pimki will sell exclusive designs on Shein at lower prices than elsewhere, as reported by Le Figaro. A French cyclist attempting a cross-continent race was detained in Russia. The endurance cyclist was arrested after crossing the Russian border with China while attempting to break a Lisbon to Vladivostok record across the Eurasian continent, as reported by Le Monde. Thieves took off with 600,000 euros, approximately $711,000 worth of gold from the Natural History Museum in Paris. The break-in on Tuesday morning, targeting gold samples of immeasurable heritage value, comes amid a wave of robberies at French cultural institutions, as reported by Le Monde. The Greek Navy is set to purchase a fourth French-made frigate. Greece has already ordered 24 Rafale fighter jets and 3 Bellara-class defense and intervention frigates from France for a total of more than 5.5 billion euros, approximately $6.5 billion, as reported by Le Monde. A charity warned that 1 in 3 French people struggle to afford 3 meals a day. Anti-poverty charity Secours Populaire Français has published a survey revealing that 1 in 5 French people are in financially precarious situation, with 1 in 3 at imminent risk of falling into poverty, as reported by RFI. This is the news for Thursday, September 18th. France saw a day of nationwide strikes by the main French unions. The Interior Ministry estimated between 600,000 and 900,000 demonstrators across the country, as reported by France 24. President Macron said that UN sanctions on Iran are to be reimposed. European powers will likely reimpose international sanctions by the end of the month after their latest round of talks with Tehran aimed at preventing them were deemed not serious, as reported by Reuters. A previously unknown Picasso portrait was revealed in Paris. The colorful oil painting entitled Bust of a Woman with Flowery Hat depicts Dora Maar, an artist and Pablo Picasso's muse. The painting is being put up for auction in Paris with a reserve price of 8 million euros, as reported by Le Monde. The French Alps 2030 Winter Games are facing a legal challenge over environmental concerns. A citizens group has filed a lawsuit demanding a public debate on France's 2030 Winter Olympics, citing environmental risks, high costs, and a lack of consultation, as reported by Le Monde. Jaden Smith has been named artistic director of luxury fashion house Christian Louboutin's menswear line. 27-year-old actor and musician Jaden Smith, son of actor Will Smith, will debut his first designs at Paris Fashion Week in January 2026, as reported by Le Figaro. France announced its submission for the 2026 Oscars. Iranian filmmaker Jafar Panahi's Palme d'Or-winning drama, It Was Just an Accident. Panahi edited the film in France, co-financed it with a French company, and for the first time in more than a decade traveled out of Iran to premiere the film in May at the Cannes Film Festival, as reported by Le Monde. Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte are planning to present photographic and scientific evidence to a U.S. court to prove that Madame Macron is a woman. Their lawyer says the French president and Mrs. Macron will present the documentation in a defamation suit they have taken against the right-wing influencer Candace Owens after she promoted her belief that Brigitte Macron was born male, as reported by Libération. This is the news for Friday, September 19th. A French military leader warned of increased hostile activity in space. France's top military space official, Major General Vincent Chusseau, has warned of intensifying hostile or unfriendly activity in space, particularly by Russia, joining a growing chorus of Western powers publicly warning about a rapidly growing security threat, as reported by Reuters. A suspect in a 1982 attack on a Jewish restaurant in Paris was arrested in the West Bank today. The attack 43 years ago left 6 people dead and at least 20 others injured, as reported by Reuters. The towers of Notre Dame Cathedral are reopening to the public. Nearly a year after the interior of the cathedral reopened, President Emmanuel Macron inaugurated the final section today. The towers stood firmly against the fire in April 2019, which destroyed the framework, the spire, apse, and nave. The towers are now the last section to reopen to visitors on time for the European Heritage Days this weekend, as reported by Le Monde. The French government told mayors not to fly Palestinian flags next week. With France planning to recognize the Palestinian state on Monday, some mayors and political leaders had called for displaying the Palestinian flag in city halls, as reported by Le Monde. You are listening to Le Weekend. And now that you're all caught up with the news from the week of September 15th to 19th, we are ready to dive into the bonus story. Today, we are looking at notorious museum heists and why they made the news this week. A major story made the headlines this week: the museum heist at the National Museum of Natural History in Paris, where professional thieves stole native gold specimens valued at around 600,000 euros, approximately 700,000 US dollars, on September 17th. The crime echoes a worrying nationwide trend as French museums reassess their security measures following recent and similarly spectacular robberies, leading to this look around the conversation on cultural heritage, public trust, and the global saga of stolen masterpieces. The news connects us not just with the issue of art and heritage theft, but leads to a reflection about the global black market for cultural treasures and the challenges museums face in balancing public access with security and preservation. France's museums, like all major collections, are targets for theft precisely because their holdings include both historic and scientific items that command immense value and international attention. But do they sell? And to whom? The Natural History Museum's heist is part of a string of crimes, including a 9.5 million euro porcelain theft at the Adrien du Boucher Museum earlier this month, that can serve as context for a recurring discussion on how French and global museums safeguard cultural property. Classic cases such as the theft of Mona Lisa in 1911 or contemporary burglaries in Paris and Limoges show how stories of stolen art and artifacts continually fascinate, but also raise questions about gaps in museum security, inside jobs, and motives ranging from profit to orders by specific collectors. Let's go back to the most recent story. The theft at the Paris Natural History Museum was detected in the morning of Tuesday, September 17th, when cleaning staff arrived and discovered that several display cases in the museum's geology and mineralogy galleries had been forced open using an angle grinder and blowtorch. The National Museum of Natural History, located along the Seine River in the 5th arrondissement, is famed for its dinosaur skeletons, its taxidermy, and a mineralogy collection that boasts over 600,000 stones and fossils dating back centuries. Museum officials quickly determined that multiple specimens of native gold, a precious metal in its natural unrefined state, sometimes mixed with silver, had been taken from the national collection. Although the raw gold is valued at about 600,000 euros based on world market prices, authorities stressed its immeasurable heritage value due to scientific, cultural, and historical significance. Among the lost treasures was a gold and quartz sample originating from California's Donatia mine and gifted to the museum by a French collector. The museum's director, Emmanuel Skoulios, described the operation as extremely professional, noting that the thieves seemed to know exactly where to go and what equipment to use. It is suspected, according to police sources cited by Le Parisien, that the criminals were aware of a security vulnerability. The museum's alarm and surveillance systems had been compromised in a cyber attack back in July. No suspects have yet been apprehended. The mineralogy gallery closed immediately for assessment, and staff scoured inventory for possible further losses. The museum lamented publicly that the specimens are irreplaceable, not just as valuable commodities, but as scientific keys to understanding geology, chemistry, and the formation of the earth. According to a museum spokesperson, the latest heights comes at a critical time for cultural institutions and museums, echoing a disturbing nationwide trend. Earlier this month, thieves broke into the Adrien Dubouché National Museum in Limoges, stealing 2 dishes and a vase made of Chinese porcelain. These objects, classed as national treasures, were valued at 6.5 million euros, more than 7 million US dollars. The Limoges Museum boasts the world's largest collection of ceramics and porcelain, and its break-in prompted a 7-day closure and an ongoing police investigation. Late last year, 4 masked men wielding axes and baseball bats smashed display cases in the Cognac G Museum in Paris in front of visitors, making off with several 18th century works of art. This was followed only a day later by a multi-million euro jewelry robbery at a museum in Saône-et-Loire. No less notorious was the armed robbery at the Musée d'Art Moderne in Paris in 2010, which is the subject of a Netflix documentary, when Viran Tomic, known as Spider-Man for his acrobatic exploits, staged the largest art theft in French history by slipping into the museum through a broken window and stealing masterpieces by Braque, Léger, Matisse, Modigliani, and Picasso worth more than 100 million euros, approximately 118 million US dollars. But why are museum heists so alluring and so frequent? France's remarkable museum collections, rich history, and thriving black market in cultural artifacts make it an attractive target for thieves who are often highly skilled and strategically informed. The stolen items are sometimes national treasures, sometimes scientific specimens, sometimes dazzling jewelry, each with stories as unique as their value. Museum heists in France often follow a pattern of disabling alarms and surveillance, sometimes via cyber attack, as in Paris in July 2025, precise targeting of valuable items, sometimes relying on insider knowledge, physical force and professional tools like blowtorches, grinders, and bats, often timed to coincide during staff changeovers, either late at night or early in the morning, and allegedly connections to larger crime syndicates or collectors seeking specific objects. But why is there a demand for these pieces? Experts highlight the challenges thieves face in profiting from stolen artworks, noting there is very limited demand in legitimate markets. Aaron Thompson, professor of art crime at John Jay College, said to ArtNet that they've busted plenty of reclusive, unscrupulous, powerful art lovers, from dictators to drug lords, but they haven't found stolen masterpieces on their walls. And FBI art crime specialist Christopher McGough added that when a stolen artwork is discovered on a black market, there's a good chance it could be a fake and completely unrelated to the original theft. In some cases, the thieves gamble on the heavy insurance claims, holding the piece to the insurance company directly at ransom, or in other cases, betting on insurance companies generally offering a no questions asked reward for the return. In any case, as the most recent Paris gold heist demonstrates, criminal ingenuity can still outpace even robust measures, making the safeguarding of cultural heritage a permanent headline issue. And finally, no discussion of museum thefts in France would be complete without the Mona Lisa's disappearance. On August 21st, 1911, the world's most famous painting vanished from its place at the Louvre. At first, the investigation cast an unusually wide net. Police even questioned the young Pablo Picasso, who was then part of Paris's avant-garde art scene and already considered a provocative figure. He and the poet Guillaume Apollinaire were both interrogated after art objects linked to them surfaced, though neither had taken the painting and both were cleared of suspicion. Despite international headlines, the trail quickly went cold And for more than 2 years, the world's most famous portrait remained missing without a trace. In the end, the culprit, Vincenzo Perugia, was found to be an Italian handyman who worked in the museum and hid the painting in his apartment for 2 years before he was caught while attempting to sell it in Florence. The theft made Mona Lisa a global icon and led to the introduction of new security measures in museums worldwide. For journalists and listeners alike, museum heists are irresistible tales. They combine the immediate drama of breaking news with timeless stories of art and history. The stories start as questions about monetary impact, but invariably lead to reflections about the public value that a society gives to art and science. We hope you enjoyed this story. If you're interested in reading more about these art heists in the sources used for this report, they include Le Monde, ArtNet News, Agence France Presse, and the New York Times. Thank you for listening to Le Weekend, your one-stop destination for everything we covered this past week in France. Catch our daily France News Brief roundups of the main news in France every weekday, wherever you get your podcasts. Stay informed.